Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to Emergency Management Associates, coming to you from the Area Command, 392 miles west of Kitty Hawk Beach, North Carolina. We want to welcome everybody who's joined us here on the show tonight. We have a jam-packed program for you. As we promised, we will be talking about EMA, or not EMA. Well, we are talking right now about Emergency Management Associates. We're going to be talking about EMPs, electromagnetic pulses, electromagnetic pulse, solar flares, and what can happen when we get hit by an EMP. I'm going to go through all sources and talk about just about everything to do with EMPs. But first tonight, I want to tell you right now that arrests have begun. Arrests around this country have begun. The FBI through Cash Patel and also through Dan Bongino and the the Attorney General's office, Pam Bondi, arrests have begun. I want to go through this equally important fact with you. It's important. It's very important. First off, 2 judges have been arrested. I want to play this news clip from Fox News for you. I want to give you a good idea of exactly what is going on here. Let's play this for you right now.
But first, a Wisconsin judge under arrest and facing charges accused of flouting federal law to help an illegal immigrant. Federal prosecutors say Milwaukee County Circuit Court Judge Hannah Dugan allegedly helped that migrant avoid arrest by ICE officers at the courthouse. It's a bizarre case and it's still unfolding. Hello, I'm John Roberts in Washington. Sandra, good to see you back again.
All right, good to be back with you as well, John. I'm Sandra Smith in New York, and this is America Reports. So today's arrest of a judge marks the second such case in the last 24 hours. A former New Mexico judge and his wife were taken into custody yesterday. Federal agents arresting them for harboring a suspected Tren-de-Aragua gang member in their guest house.
For more on all of this, we are honored to have in the new U.S. Attorney General, Pam Bondi. It's good to talk to you, Pam.
Good to talk to you.
So let me read a little bit from the criminal complaint here. And Judge Dugan says, despite having been advised of the administrative warrant for the arrest of Flores Ruiz, Judge Dugan then escorted Flores Ruiz and his counsel out of the courtroom through the jury door, which leads to a non-public area of the courthouse. A foot chase ensued. The agents pursued Flores Ruiz for the entire length of the courthouse and ultimately apprehended him. According to this complaint, Judge Dugan was visibly angry that ICE was there to arrest Flores Ruiz, even tried to kick the deportation agents out of the courthouse.
Yeah, and to set the stage for you and Sandra, this was truly horrific. This guy was in court being prosecuted by a state prosecutor for domestic violence battery. He had beat up 2 people, a guy and a girl, hit the guy 30 times, knocked him to the ground, choked him, beat up a woman so badly they both had to go to the hospital. And John, you know, it's so rare for victims to want to cooperate. They wanted to cooperate. They were sitting in the courtroom with the state prosecutor. The judge learns that ICE was outside to get the guy because he had been deported in 2013, came back in our country, commits these crimes, charged with committing these crimes, victims in court. Judge finds out. She goes out in the hallway, screams at the immigration officers. She's furious, visibly shaken, upset, sends them off to talk to the chief judge. She comes back in the courtroom. You're not going to believe this. Takes the defendant and the defense attorney back in her chambers, takes them out a private exit and tells them to leave. While a state prosecutor and victims of domestic violence are sitting in the courtroom.
Wow.
You know, Madam Attorney General, great to have you here, and thanks for coming back on America Report. So we remember these words of Tom Homan, the border czar. This was March 17th, and his message on these judges who apparently are trying to get in the way of this administration's efforts. Listen.
I'm proud to be a part of this administration. We're not stopping. I don't care what the judges think. I don't care what the left thinks. We're coming.
So when you see these judges trying to obstruct your efforts to make this country safer, what is your message to them?
we are going to prosecute you, and we are prosecuting you. I found out about this the day it happened. We could not believe, actually, that a judge really did that. We looked into the facts in great depth. That's her picture up on the screen, Hannah Dugan, who is now in custody. You cannot obstruct a criminal case, and really, shame on her. It was a domestic violence case of all cases, and she's protecting a criminal defendant over victims of crime.
In fact, she just had an initial appearance in court. There's also this other case coming out of New Mexico. Judge Joel Cano and his wife were arrested for harboring a TDA member at their home. The alleged TDA member had been picked up by law enforcement, and now he and his wife were picked up and arrested. And you say that you believe, as the Attorney General, that the person that they were having living at their home was a truly potentially bad individual.
Yeah, that's the judge up on the screen now who got arrested. Yeah, his name is Ortega. He was is a known TDA member. So he comes through Eagle Pass December 2023. He's living in our country. January 2025, ICE, they get a tip. Tom Homan's done a great job. Our FBI did a great job on this case, too.
Okay, listen to this. This next part is very important. Listen to what Pam Bondi's going to say now.
They get a tip that he is living with a judge and the judge's wife. So they have him arrested first on immigration charges. A Judge Damian Martinez releases him, saying that Judge Cano has a good BS meter and wouldn't let just anyone live on his property.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the associations with this violent Venezuelan gang, Tren de Aragua, and this person that they harbored in their home, he was showing signs through clothing, we were told, tattoos. There was evidence through voice messages and text messages of his association to TDA. So what charges will Cano and his wife face, if any?
So Judge Cano, soon to be former Judge Cano, his charges were just unsealed. He's charged with obstruction. He admitted post Miranda. He took one of the TDA members' cell phones.
Okay, post Miranda. The police, whether it be FBI or whoever it is, the police have to read their suspect their rights. Their civil rights under what they call the Miranda case. The Miranda case dates back to about 1968, I believe, meaning you have to tell everybody what their rights under the law are. This man screwed up royally. This judge screwed up royally.
Himself took it, beat it with a hammer, destroyed it, and then
he destroyed the illegal immigrant's phone. He destroyed the gang member's phone, tore it apart, hammered it with a sledgehammer, and then deposited the remains of the phone in a city dumpster where ICE could not find it.
Walked the pieces to a city dumpster to dispose of it to protect him. The wife also is charged with destroying evidence. Sandra, not only that, this TDA member, and he had on a necklace that said kill, something about death. He had tattoos all over him. He also had on his cell phone pictures of two decapitated victims, decapitated, gruesome photos, and he was sending them out, and whoever he was sending them to was sending back saying, hey, you need to be careful, you shouldn't be sending these, you shouldn't be texting these photos out. Not only that, these two, the judge and his wife, gave him assault rifles that belonged to their daughter. That's what they're...
The judge and his wife gave this gangbanger, gave this Tren de Aragua gang member from Venezuela, gave him his daughter's assault weapons, AR-15s and other weapons. Then they took these gang members out to the desert in New Mexico and fired those weapons.
Charged with... In the criminal report affidavit, he goes to a shooting range with these assault rifles, with a suppressor, with other known TDA members, and they're shooting. This is the last person that we want in our country, nor will we ever tolerate a judge or anyone else harboring them.
Let me, if I could, Madam Attorney General, come back to the Wisconsin case and Judge Hannah Dugan, because in allegedly letting the perpetrator and the attorney out through a non-public exit and allowed them to get out in front of the building. We had a situation where we've seen that I know Tom Homan was complaining about in Colorado, where there would be no transfer of a defendant from a jail to ICE custody on a detainer request in a way that was orderly and protected public safety. They would dump them off in a parking lot, and then ICE would have to chase them around with the DEA or whatever, or FBI, and pick them up. This ended up in a foot chase in public sight. It says here, a foot chase ensued. The agents, and this was a DEA agent and an FBI agent, pursued Flores Ruiz for the entire length of the courthouse, ultimately apprehended him near the intersection of West State Street and 10th Street. So the judge apparently has created a situation here where you have a public foot chase. And we all know that, well, sometimes they can come off without incident. They can also turn into very dangerous situations.
John, that's exactly right. She put the lives of our law enforcement officers at risk. She put the lives of citizens at risk. A street chase, which is absurd that had to happen. But yes, she put a lot of people in danger. That judge did it. So did the other judge. Judge Cano is charged with. They were allegedly giving him assault rifles, AK-47s, AR-15s, with a suppressor, a known TDA member, letting him go to a shooting range to refine and perfect his shooting skills. Madam What's happened to our judiciary is beyond me.
Yeah, so when the American public hears this and they think these were once upstanding people in their communities and their professions, and they put it all on the line for this, I mean, have you dug into their motive? Like, what inspired them to carry out these acts and harbor criminals?
They're deranged is all I can think of. I cannot believe. I think some of these judges think they are beyond and above the law, and they are not. And we're sending a very strong message today. If you are harboring a fugitive, we don't care who you are. If you are helping hide one, if you are giving a TDA member guns, anyone who is illegally in this country, we will come after you and we will prosecute you. We will find you.
If I could just finish off with this idea, very significant development that you're arresting judges now. Now, it could be that the judges have engaged in terribly bad behavior and deserve to be arrested. But you know what critics will say? They'll say, oh, this is a government that is expanding the powers of the Article 1 of the Constitution. Now they're arresting judges. How do you respond to that?
No one is above the law, John. No one is above the law in this country. And if you are destroying evidence, if you are obstructing justice, when you have victims sitting in a courtroom of domestic violence and you're escorting a criminal defendant out a back door, it will not be tolerated, and it is a crime in the United States of America. Doesn't matter who you are, you're going to be prosecuted.
It doesn't matter who you are, you're going to be prosecuted. That's the bottom line. It does not matter who you are, you will be prosecuted. To the fullest extent of the law. To the fullest extent of the law, guys. But they're not the only ones. They're not the only ones. Let me give you some more information here, in case you didn't know. Remember last Saturday, when our United States Supreme Court justices, 5 out of the 9 Supreme Court justices, took upon themselves the idea that, hey, we are going to let these gang members go. We're going to let these gang members go. Really? You're going to let these gang members go? For what reason? What reason? They have no reason. And in fact, what the Supreme Court justices did is against the law. 5 out of the 9 Supreme Court justices violated the law. And I'm going to discuss that with you tonight. I'm going to put it all out there. Please, folks, share this program far and wide. Everybody needs to know what we're seeing here. Everybody needs to know what we're seeing here. I'm very serious about this. The Democrats, the Democrat Communist Party of America, we're talking about Pelosi, Senator Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Senator Pocahontas, Maxine Waters. We have Congresswoman AOC, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, and many others. They're stealing our taxpayers' money, and they're also violating the law. Laundering money through Ukraine and other non-governmental organizations into their own back pockets. That's how these people got rich. Laundering money into their own back pockets, just like Joseph Biden's family did. Laundering money, United States taxpayer money, sent to Ukraine to support the military effort, and Ukraine funnels it back to Joe Biden and his family. Unreal. There's going to be more arrests. All of these socialist Democrats will be in jail at some point in time here. The proof is there. What is it going to take? For me and you, I want our tax money back. I want our tax money over the last 30 years back. I do. Now that Supreme Court justices ruling on Saturday at 1 a.m. in the morning. Why did they do it at 1 a.m. in the morning? Because they didn't think they would be found out. They did not think they would be found out. But Justice Alito decided to make a resenting reply to the Supreme Court midnight ruling. Let's talk about this. This is important. This is very important. I hope that all of you will take this seriously. That all of you who are listening and whose families are here watching this program and will see this program at some point in time are going to take this very seriously. I'm very serious about this. I couldn't be more serious than a heart attack. Okay? I've got a lot of information here. I've got a ton of information here. ICE has just barely begun. Let me play this clip for you. This is Attorney Andrew F. Bronca. Let him explain exactly what has happened in the United States Supreme Court last Saturday night, Sunday morning at 1 a.m. in the morning. You're going to want to know this.
All right, so we had this Saturday night issuance of this SCOTUS temporary restraining order. I shared that with you already. It's just a paragraph. And then the same.
Also, I have a link in the program description tonight, right below this program here. In our program description, I have a link to this man's statement here on YouTube. You need to watch it. You also need to share with your friends. Andrew Bronca is an attorney, and he's captured exactly what the Supreme Court did last Saturday night.
Same day, later that day, we had the dissent. It's about as scathing a dissent as I've seen from a Supreme Court justice. I got to be honest with you. It's pretty brutal as these things go. You know, normally everyone bends over backwards to be super polite to each other. All right, let's hop on over, and here we go. So, Supreme Court of the U.S., a whole bunch of people suing over these TDA deportations. AARP is the first named plaintiff. Really, the power plaintiff here is the ACLU. Justice Alito, let me pull up my little pen. Justice Alito, with whom Justice Thomas joins dissenting from this 1 a.m. TRO. Shortly after midnight.
A TRO is a temporary restraining order. A justice of another court issued a temporary restraining order that was not valid.
Yesterday, this would have been, I think it was midnight the same day, April 19th. I believe that's when the SCOTUS order was done. Let me see. Yeah, it's the same day. So it feels like the prior day to him because it was 1 a.m. when it happened. The Supreme Court hastily and prematurely, granted unprecedented emergency relief. Proceeding under the All Writs Act, the court ordered the government not to remove a putative class of detainees until the Supreme Court issued a following order.
Okay, this bunch of detainees, Tren de Aragua and MS-13 gang members. These gang members are presently being held at a ICE detainment facility. And our Supreme Court justices ruled that they cannot be deported until other proceedings happen. Violation of the law number 1.
Putative class. That means there is no class, folks. Putative means there is none.
No class. These gang members have no class. They don't have any standing because they're illegal. They're not citizens of this country.
Although the order does not define the putative class, I love how he keeps putting it in scare quotes. It appears the Supreme Court means all members of the class that the habeas petitioners sought to have certified by Boasberg. Namely,
remember Judge Boasberg from Washington tried to take upon himself the authority to overrule the President of the United States? Who in the heck is Judge Boasberg? What the hell is going on here? Is Judge Boasberg the President of the United States? Hell no. Hell no. This is exactly what Judge Alito and Judge Thomas are pointing to, because the United States Supreme Court justices stepped out of line here.
all non-citizens in custody in the Northern District of Texas who were, are, or will be subject to the March 25th proclamation entitled Invocation of the Alien Enemies Act regarding the invasion of the United States by Tren de Aragua. Tren de Aragua. I wonder if I can make that thinner. I don't know how. Okay, back to this. And although the Supreme Court does not specify what it means by the government, it appears that the term is intended to embrace all the named defendants, including the president. So one trick some of these lower courts have done, these unelected, black-robed, tyrannical, inferior district trial court judges, is...
Did you hear that? Those tyrannical, inferior, the appellate and district court judges, tyrannical appellate court justices,
when they issue their temporary restraining orders or injunctions against the Article 2 executive branch, they'll list a whole bunch of executive branch officers, but they won't list President Trump. As if you don't mention him, he whose name must not be spoken, then you're allowed to violate the separation of powers doctrine. Then an Article 3 inferior trial court judge is allowed to enjoin the elected Article 2 executive branch president, elected by the whole of the American people to carry out their political will. As long as you don't name the president, it's cool, which is ridiculous. The president doesn't do things himself for the most part. He delegates the executive authority that the Constitution bestows entirely and exclusively on one person, the Article 2 executive branch elected president, and then the president delegates that to his officers to carry out his will. So if you're enjoining the officers, you're enjoining the will of the president, whether you're naming him or not. It just makes the separation of powers doctrine more glaringly obvious when you name the president, as they did here. By the way, when he says the court does not specify, one requirement for a temporary restraining order or an injunction to be enforceable is that it has to be unambiguous. It has to have explicit clarity on what is being ordered to be done or ordered not to be done. If it's ambiguous, then the party being enjoined doesn't know what they're supposed to do or not do. It makes the TRO or the injunction without legal effect.
Did you hear that? It makes the TRO, the temporary restraining order, of no effect. Illegal. Illegal, guys. That's where it stands. What the Supreme Court did the other night was illegal.
Court did all this. How mad is Alito? Did all this, even though, and then he provides the rest of the court, that 7 majority, with a bulleted list of the ways they effed up. The Supreme Court did all this at 1 a.m., even though it's not clear that the Supreme Court has jurisdiction. Now even the Supreme Court is acting without jurisdiction.
The Supreme Court doesn't have a jurisdiction. Why in the hell did these executive justices get away with this? They're not going to get away with it for very long. Attorney Bronca and other justices will hold the Supreme Court in contempt.
So the All Writs Act, let me see if I can find a good summary of that quick for all of you. It does not really apply here, is the bottom line, but it's been a while since I've had to describe it. So let me pull it up. Basically, it means the courts can issue all writs, all orders that are necessary to carry out their jurisdiction in the cases before them. But the All Writs Act does not work in the absence of jurisdiction. A court only has authority to do anything when it has jurisdiction over a case, over the parties before it. Oh,
did you hear that? The court only has jurisdiction. They can only rule on those things that they have jurisdiction over. So the Supreme Court did not have jurisdiction over this, and they were trying to usurp the authority of the President of the United States.
Geographic jurisdiction, personal jurisdiction, subject matter jurisdiction. If there's no jurisdiction, there are no lawful orders. There are no writs that can be issued.
If they don't have jurisdiction, they have no authority.
Issued lawfully. So the first question a court should ask itself when parties appear before it with a dispute is, do I, the court, the unelected, black-robed, tyrannical, inferior district trial court judge here, even have the legal authority to hear this matter? Because courts do not have infinite authority. Their authority, their jurisdiction is limited by Congress and by the law in terms of personal jurisdiction, subject matter jurisdiction, which, by the way, all these immigration cases should be in immigration court, not in the federal district courts. Geographic jurisdiction, like Boasberg is hearing habeas arguments from people in Texas.
Did you hear that? That Judge Boasberg that caused such a ruckus several weeks ago in Washington, he was trying to usurp jurisdiction from Texas. Judge Boasberg did not have jurisdiction at all.
That's not allowed. So not having jurisdiction is a fatal flaw to any court's exercise of authority. They don't have authority if they don't have jurisdiction. So Alito points out it's not clear that the court has jurisdiction. The All Writs Act does not provide an independent grant of jurisdiction. That would be insane. That means I have jurisdiction because I want to issue an order. That's not how it works. You get the legal authority, the jurisdiction first, then you can issue an order. You don't issue an order and say the order creates the jurisdiction, then jurisdiction would be a meaningless concept. And we are not a nation that our founders structured on the notion that black-robed, unelected, inferior district trial court judges are here to rule us all with unlimited authority. Therefore, this Supreme Court had jurisdiction only if the Court of Appeals, the court just below the Supreme Court, had jurisdiction of the applicant's appeal. And the Court of Appeals had jurisdiction only if the supposed order that the applicants appealed amounted to the denial of a preliminary injunction. In other words, that the trial court had denied the party. Then the party can appeal. But here, the order that the applicants appealed was what they viewed as the district court's constructive denial of their request for a temporary restraining order. They asked Judge Boasberg for a TRO that would require 30 days notice to terrorists before they could be deported. And Judge Boasberg didn't say, I deny your request for the TRO. He said, I can't make a decision on this because the Supreme Court has told me I don't have jurisdiction. That's not a denial that can be appealed because there is no jurisdiction in the first place. So the parties, the ACLU, the terrorists said, well, it's not a real denial. It's not a denial, as Whoopi Goldberg might say, but it's a constructive denial. Constructive means effective denial. So this comes up a lot in employment cases. Say you work for a company and they can't fire you lawfully for some reason. They want to get rid of you, but they can't figure out a way to do it lawfully. Often what they'll do is stuff like remove you from the office you've had and put you in a cubicle. It's like that guy from Office Space. Remember the guy with the red stapler? And they moved him down into the basement. They didn't technically. I mean, I know in the movie he actually was fired, but for purposes of this analogy, that kind of, when they move you into the basement, is a constructive termination. They've effectively fired you. So that's what the terrorists are trying to argue here. Alito continues. That is, the trial court of Judge Boasberg, the black-robed, unelected, tyrannical, inferior district trial court judge, did not actually deny the request for a TRO, but they inferred that it was constructively denied because the district court failed to rule on the request before the expiration of a truncated council-imposed deadline. In other words, the terrorists set their own deadline. If we don't hear from you, Judge Boasberg, by X hour, we're going to construe that as a denial of our request for a TRO. Guess what the lawyers don't get to do? They don't get to make up their own deadlines. The court makes up the deadlines. The lawyers don't make up the deadlines to the court. Alito continues. The denial of a true TRO is not appealable. And here it is not clear that the applicant's TRO request was even actually denied. Indeed, in an order issued last night, so the Fifth Circuit issued an order even while the Supreme Court was doing its thing, held that it lacked jurisdiction to hear the appeal on the TRO question, the TRO denial, for these reasons. The TRO was never actually denied. So if it wasn't actually denied, even the Court of Appeals doesn't have jurisdiction. And if the Court of Appeals doesn't have jurisdiction first, then there's nothing to appeal to the Supreme Court. Second bullet point. It is questionable whether the applicants, the terrorists, complied with the general obligation to seek emergency injunctive relief in the trial court before asking for such relief from an appellate court. When the applicants requested such relief in the trial court, they insisted on a ruling within 45 minutes on Good Friday afternoon. And when the district court did not act within 133 minutes, they filed a notice of appeal, with the district court held deprived it of jurisdiction. So they appealed to the Court of Appeals. And then Judge Boasberg said, well, once you appeal to the Court of Appeals, you've removed jurisdiction from me, even more than it already had been. It's doubtful that this aborted effort satisfies the rules of appellate procedure. Third bullet point. When this Supreme Court rushed to enter its order at 1 a.m., the Court of Appeals was considering the issue of emergency relief. And we were informed that a decision would be forthcoming. But the majority on the Supreme Court refused to wait. But under this Supreme Court's own rule, except in the most extraordinary of circumstance, an application for a stay, a pause in a lower court's order, will not be entertained unless the relief requested was first sought in the appropriate court or courts below, the appellate court. Fourth bullet point of malfeasance cited by Alito. The only papers before this court were those submitted by the applicants. The court had not ordered or received a response by the government. So it's an ex parte hearing before the Supreme Court. The White House didn't get to present its side of the argument regarding either the applicant's factual allegations, like, oh my God, it's a panic situation, or any of the legal issues. And the Supreme Court did not have the benefit of a government response filed in any of the lower courts either. When the terrorists first raised their allegations in the trial court, that court provided the government with 24 hours to respond and was poised to rule expeditiously. But the trial court dissolved the government's obligation to respond after the terrorist lawyers filed their hasty appeal with the Court of Appeals, which removes jurisdiction from the trial court, which in the trial court's view deprived it of jurisdiction. Fifth bullet point. The papers before us, the Supreme Court, while alleging that the applicants were in imminent danger of removal, provided little concrete support for that allegation. Members of this court have repeatedly insisted that an All Writs Act injunction pending appeal may only be granted when, among other things, the legal rights at issue are indisputably clear, and even then, sparingly and only in the most critical and exigent circumstances. Although this court did not hear directly from the government regarding any planned deportations under the Alien Enemies Act, an attorney representing the government in a different matter, this is the, I don't remember who JGG is, sorry folks, informed the trial court, this is one of the original TDA people who's not part of these current proceedings now. He sought habeas down in Texas, so he removed himself from Boasberg's court. jurisdiction. In a different matter, JGG v. Trump informed the district court in that case during a hearing yesterday evening that no such deportations were then planned to occur either yesterday, April 18th, Friday, or today, April 19th. Although the Supreme Court provided class-wide relief, what's the class? The district court, Alito gets to that. The trial court never certified a class. And this court has never held that class relief may be sought in a habeas proceeding, because habeas is an individual right. Habeas is, I've been detained by the government. I have a right to be presented in front of a judge to compel the government to explain why they're holding me. That's an individual right. It's not a group right. How could it be a group right? Every member of the group is going to have different facts. In some, literally in the middle of the night, 1 a.m., the Supreme Court issued unprecedented and legally questionable relief without giving the lower courts a chance to rule, without hearing from the opposing party within 8 hours of receiving the application, with dubious factual support for its order, and without providing any explanation for its order. I refused to join the court's order because we had no good reason to think that under the circumstances, issuing an order at midnight was necessary or appropriate. Both the executive and the judiciary have an obligation to follow the law. The courts too. The executive must proceed under the terms of our order, the earlier order that had taken jurisdiction away from Boasberg, and this Supreme Court should follow established procedures. Bad Supreme Court, bad, says Alito. Bad.
Okay. Guys, what the Supreme Court did last Saturday night, Sunday morning, was against the law. For the first time in my life, the very first time in my life, we found that the Supreme Court, the one court that we all looked up to throughout our lives, to give us jurisdiction, to give us some kind of peace, violated the law. Not only violated the law, but allowed these terrorists to stay in this country. Our own Supreme Court allowed these terrorists to remain in this country. What a joke this is. Putting all of us, all of the citizens of this country and other people in danger. That's exactly what they've done. And then we have two other judges that completely violate the law as well, allowing these gangbangers to carry heavy-duty weapons, AR-15s and other AR weapons. What a joke that is. What a joke that is. And then we have another judge in Wisconsin that has a gangbanger in her courtroom on charges of domestic violence. And because she knows there are ICE agents outside the doors of her courtroom waiting to get their hands on this man, she ushers them into her own private office and then out the side door to keep the gangbanger out of ICE hands. What a joke. Now those two judges are in jail. Those two judges and one of the justices' wives are in jail. What a joke. What a joke. Our justice system is supposed to have teeth. Our justice system is supposed to have teeth, and yet they violate the law. Our own justices and the left-leaning justice in the U.S. Supreme Court are going to have some splaining to do. Trump attorneys and the Attorney General are going to go after justices of the United States Supreme Court for handing down that ruling last Saturday night, Sunday morning. A violation of jurisdictions, a violation of the law. Unreal. Unreal. If we are going to allow this to happen, then we, each of us, are also in violation of the law because we're not willing to stand up for truth. We're not willing to stand up for the truth of the law. And if we're not willing to stand up for the truth of the law, then why? Why do we have police? Why do we have justices in any state of the country? Why? If our justices will not support the law, and abide by the law, then they are just as bad as we are, and they belong behind bars. They belong behind bars. Now, I urge you all to go over and show Attorney Bronco some love on his YouTube site. I left a link in the program description tonight so you can go over and show his YouTube channel some love. If you want to, then I would highly recommend you do it, because this is not the only time I've watched what Attorney Bronco said. Bronco's smart. Bronco deserves recognition. Bronco knows what he's talking about. He's trying to help us. So please go over and show his channel some love. And also, he has another, let me bring his picture back up. Andrew Bronco. He has a website of lawofselfdefense.com. Lawofselfdefense.com. I urge you all to go show his channel some love and look at his website. It's very helpful. Very, very helpful. Now, I promised you we would talk about earthquakes. We'd talk about the electromagnetic pulses. Okay? Let's for a second go over and take a look at earthquakes. I want to show you what's actually happened here. Let's take a look at the USGS map here. Let me take the banner down here. Let me take my mug shot down here as well. Now, I don't know why this map continues to go back to the Imperial Valley of California. It doesn't matter. We're going to take it out. Yes, there are earthquakes here in the Imperial Valley, and they're not showing them. How dare they not show what's going on? How dare they not show what's going on? There are plenty of earthquakes in the Imperial Valley and other places around California and all over the world. And yet USBS decides they're not going to show any earthquakes. What a joke. They only show what they want us to see. Let's go over here to the southern Cascade subduction area. Over here to the San Andreas Fault up here. The San Andreas Fault joins up with the Gorda Escarpment and the Cascade subduction zone here, known as the Triple Junction. Here on the San Andreas Fault to the north, we have a 2.4 earthquake just off the coast of Petrolia, California, and 2.7 here. Further west here on the western side of the Cascade subduction area, we have another 2.8. So we have two minor earthquakes on the northern part of the San Andreas Fault. And further out here to the west, also in the southern Cascade subduction zone, we have a 2.8 earthquake. All three of these are minor earthquakes here. They're all minor earthquakes. But as I said earlier this week, we are going to have a major earthquake here, and it could happen any day, but I fully expect it to happen within the next 2 years. Up here, this is Coppolis Beach, Washington. As I said Monday, we have earthquakes up and down the entire coastline of Oregon and Washington and Vancouver Island. This is one more community right here, a 1.1 tremor here. And yet USBS only shows this? Really? How about 180 other earthquakes here as well, up and down the whole coast of the west coast of the United States? Let's go over here to British Columbia, Bowen Island, Canada. Bowen Island, Canada here. This is a 2.3 minor earthquake here. All of these earthquakes are in the Cascade subduction area. Okay? They're ultimately going to have an effect on what happens here in the Cascadia region. Watch it. Watch what happens. I urge you all to watch what happens. As you can see, we have earthquakes here at Mount Rainier and Mount St. Helens. But again, they're not showing all of them. Heaven forbid they show all of them. Say 50 earthquakes at Mount Rainier, and just as many earthquakes at Mount St. Helens every day. Every day. Let's go back here to Peru here, Ecuador area. The 6.3 here in Ecuador today. 7:44 a.m. Eastern Time today. 6.3, very strong earthquake here along the coastline of Ecuador here. People felt this earthquake. It was 20 kilometers northeast, actually not northeast, but it's northwest of Esmeraldas, Ecuador. Okay? How could it be northeast? How could it be northeast? It's northwest of Esmeraldas, Ecuador. Again, USGS does not know what they're talking about. Just 12 miles offshore of Ecuador here. Further offshore here, this is a 4.8 earthquake, and this is probably, I'm going to say, about 800 kilometers south of Panama. 800 kilometers south of Panama here. This is a 4.8 earthquake. 4.8 moderate earthquake here. Now, there are other earthquakes here in Peru. USGS decides not to talk about it. Going over here in the northern part of Chile and Argentina. This earthquake is a 4.1, again, near Olegue, Chile. We've had numerous earthquakes near Olegue, Chile over the past month, including a 5.0 here about 3 weeks ago. This is a 4.1 earthquake here. This happened early this morning. Okay? East of there. This is at the border of Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile. The border of Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile. This is a 4.7 earthquake. This near Atocha, Bolivia. Atocha, Bolivia. Atocha, Bolivia. Okay? 246 kilometers deep. Still a fairly moderately deep earthquake. This is not going to propagate anything. Okay? This is not that deep. Moderately deep. Again, they're not showing all the earthquakes here in South America. There are 28 earthquakes here in South America, most of those in Chile. Most of those in Chile. And again, they're not talking about it. What a joke. Let's go over here to the South Pacific. This is a 5.3 earthquake here. This happened 7:57 a.m. Eastern Time here today. 5.3 earthquake, 243 kilometers south of Oahunatonga. It's out in the Pacific Ocean. This 5.3 was not felt by anybody. The Pacific Ocean waters absorbed the shockwaves of this quake. Let's go further over here to the west. This is a 4.6 moderate earthquake here, 83 kilometers north-northwest of Isango, Vanuatu. Again, the ocean waters of the Pacific Ocean absorbed the shockwaves of this quake. It was only a 4.6 earthquake. Nobody felt this earthquake. Now, Lee and others have mentioned this earthquake over here in Papua New Guinea. This is a 5.1 earthquake. 5.1 earthquake over here on the coastline of Papua New Guinea. 5.1 large earthquake. USGS calls these moderate earthquakes. There's nothing moderate about a large earthquake, especially in this area of the world. The citizens of Papua New Guinea that live here, they don't have much money. They might make $500 a year. They might make $500 a year. Their whole subsistence relies on what they can sell from what they grow. They sell what they grow and they get their money from that. They live off the land for the most part. Earthquakes such as this provide a great disservice to the people, as you can know. Anywhere where we have major earthquakes or large earthquakes that do great destruction does a great disservice to the public. In this area especially. If anybody lives anywhere near this earthquake, yes, it's 43 kilometers from the nearest town. But it's close enough to shore to rattle nerves and to shake up the little buildings the things that they have here. The shacks, cardboard and wooden shacks. That's the kind of citizens that they have here. For example, right here to the north, right over here as well. They don't have much of anything. They don't have much of anything. Now, for all intents and purposes, I do not think anybody felt this earthquake at all. Anything that they may have felt was subdued compared to what they could have had if this thing had hit the coast on land. If this thing had hit on land, then these people would have been thoroughly rattled and probably lost everything that they had. Would have collapsed. But here in this area, I think the waters of the ocean absorbed most of the shock waves of this quake. I hope. I hope that's the case. Okay? I hope that's the case. These people have a great deal to be thankful for, but it's very little. Also over here in Papua New Guinea, we have a 4.6 earthquake here. 4.6 moderate earthquake here. This is 213 kilometers deep. Further to the southeast, Kimbe, Papua New Guinea. As I said before, this past 2 weeks, Papua New Guinea continues to get hit, especially here near Kimbe, Papua New Guinea. This earthquake was 192 kilometers east-southeast of Kimbe, Papua New Guinea. The waters of the Pacific Ocean absorbed the shockwaves of this quake, but look what this quake was. This quake was right on top, right smack dab on top of the Craton edge, the edge of the plate. In this area throughout Samoa, Tonga, Fiji, the Legacy Islands, Vanuatu, Solomon Islands, and down here into New Zealand. 7 different tectonic plates support this region. 7 different tectonic plates have influence on this region. Each tectonic plate subducts under the other. Each tectonic plate subducts under the other. Let me show you what I mean. Subduction means the plate goes underneath the other just like this. The plate goes underneath the other plate just like this. That is happening. Why does that happen? We have solar flares that heat up the plates, heat up the earthquake faults. Solar flares, the plasma radiation from the sun launched by a solar sunspot. The solar flare goes out into space, and when it hits the earth, it goes like this. It goes just like this. Okay, it doesn't just affect the earth side facing the sun. It affects the entire planet. I'm going to talk more about that tonight. But when the solar flare hits the earth, it goes through the Earth's magnetosphere. Right now, because of where we are in the present solar maximum, we have a weak magnetosphere, a relatively weak magnetosphere. So any plasma radiation, any cosmic radiation, or anything else coming from other places in space penetrate through the magnetosphere. Some get stopped by the magnetosphere. Others go through the magnetosphere and into our atmosphere, and also penetrate to the ground of the earth. A lot of this radiation also penetrates to the core of the earth as well. But in doing so, all this radiation penetrates down to the faults and also the plates. What does that do? When that radiation, I'm also talking about planetary alignments. Planetary alignments let loose with electromagnetic radiation. Electromagnetic radiation. Also heating up the plates and heating up the faults. What happens then? When that area gets heated up, all that grime, all that biological material, that sand, that rock, and that dirt is turned into a greasy, oily-like substance, which allows the faults and the plates to more freely move, just like this. That's what's happening here. This is one of the world's largest subduction zones here. one of the world's largest subduction zones in this area of Southeast Asia. That's why we have so many earthquakes here. And again, USGS is not even showing you half the earthquakes here. 24 earthquakes here in Indonesia today. They're not even showing you half of those earthquakes. Right here with this earthquake I just lit up here, this is in Timor-Leste, Indonesia. This earthquake is a 4.5 moderate earthquake. USBS calls them light earthquakes. However, this is a semi-deep quake, 502 kilometers deep. Deep quakes we've seen at 575, 600, and even 720 kilometers deep. Those are deep quakes. This is 502 kilometers deep, which means this 4.5 is going to let loose propagate another shallower, stronger earthquake. Probably going to propagate a 5.1, 5.2 earthquake sometime within the next 3 to 10 days. 3 to 10 days. That seismic energy could go east over here to Papua New Guinea, or even over here into the South Pacific Islands. It could happen. That 5.2 earthquake could also go over here to the west. Anywhere here in Indonesia. This major island here of Indonesia here, it could go over here to Sumatra. It could also go over here to where? Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, or how about Myanmar? Myanmar, the place that just got hit by an 8.0 earthquake. And yes, I know that USGS downgraded that to supposed 7.4. I'm telling you, it was at least an 8.0, 8.2 major earthquake. Even as a 7.4, it was a major earthquake, but it was a lot larger than they said it was. And as a result, you've seen the damage, pictures of some of the damage that come out. Nearly 5,000 people have been found dead, and over 4,000 people have been injured as a result of that quake over in Myanmar just 2 weeks ago. Nearly 3 weeks ago, this past Sunday, or this coming Sunday. Unreal. Unreal. And again, they're refusing to show any real earthquakes here in the Middle East or over here in Europe. They're showing 2 earthquakes here. Northwestern Turkey here, Seismic, Turkey. This is a 4.6 earthquake, 10 kilometers deep here. And just north of there, this is a 4.3 here, 13.7 kilometers deep. 4.3 earthquake near Kumburgaz, Turkey. Kumburgaz, Turkey. Kumburgaz, Turkey. Northern Turkey. But what they're not saying is this. There are more earthquakes here in northern Turkey as well. Central Turkey and even southern Turkey down here. And more earthquakes over here in western Turkey as well. There are earthquakes over here in the eastern Turkish-Syria border region here, where you see this earthquake fault going up here. Why do we have earthquakes here? Because February 3rd, 2023, this area experienced a 9.0, 10.0 earthquake. A 9.0, 10.0 earthquake, just like we're going to see in the Cascadia subduction zone region. Okay? I showed you the data when this earthquake first hit. You can go back through our different programs that we've shown here and find that earthquake. And I showed you the data showing that was a very, very shallow earthquake and it's a very large, major earthquake. Killed a lot of people. I showed you the data, I showed you pictures of what happened. It also opened up a great big, huge 14-mile fissure. 14-mile long fissure. The size of an 8-story building deep. Incredible. Only an earthquake of that size could have done that. Not a 7.4 or anything else they may have said it was. Again, USBS is just that, BS. BS. As you can see, they're not showing any earthquakes at all anywhere else in Europe. That's a fallacy. Unfortunately, it's a damning fallacy. Because when a major earthquake erupts again, and USGS had not said anything about any earthquakes before that, they're going to find themselves in a lot of trouble. Because they have thought that they could just get away with not talking about earthquakes, not taking responsibility on themselves for warning the public what's going on. That's the real story. That is what the real story is here. Okay? Now, we had a 5.1 earthquake over in the Kuril Islands the other day. I told you that that energy was going to move up. That earthquake followed over to the east side of Kamchatka Peninsula and eventually over here into the Aleutian Island Fault area. Some of that energy's moved over here. Today we had a 4.8 earthquake over here in the Attu Station, Western Aleutian Islands area, Attu Station. A 4.8 earthquake 10 kilometers deep. Further over here to the east, this is another 4.2 moderate earthquake here. This is near Atka, Alaska, 48 kilometers northwest of Atka, Alaska. Okay, moderate earthquakes. As you can see, we have our share of earthquakes over here in southern Alaska as well. And even today, over on the north side of Mount McKinley right here, this is a 2.4 moderate earthquake. Let's go north to the North Shore up here. Okay, folks, this is over in the Arctic Circle. The Arctic Circle. This is a 2.0 earthquake near Arctic Village. 2.0 minor earthquake here in the Arctic Village. There is no depth on this earthquake, possibly because USGS doesn't want to define how deep it was. Okay, this is up in the tundra of Alaska. The tundra of Alaska. Okay, just so you know. Do we have any questions about earthquakes anywhere? I want to answer any other earthquakes about any earthquakes anywhere else. Any questions? Demon Catman and our other mods have put up our address here and also put up our PayPal and our Venmo addresses where you can help support this program, which we would greatly appreciate. We'd also greatly appreciate any support you might give us when it comes to support over here in the Super Chat area, in our chat here. We'd appreciate that a lot. A lot. Okay? We need help supporting this program to keep it on the air. Unfortunately, it takes money to keep these programs on the air. Okay? It takes money to keep these programs on the air. Now, if you told me that 2 or 3 years ago, I would have denied it. But I can't do that anymore. It takes money to keep this program on the air. Okay? Unfortunately, it takes money to keep this program on the air. Now, I would ask you to please help us with that. If you at all can, please help us with that. Okay? Now, give me just a second here. Just a second. Okay? Anything you can do to help support this channel, we would greatly appreciate it. I thank you for doing that. Thank you for doing that. Folks, I greatly appreciate all the support you do give us. I do. Now, what I'm going to talk about tonight is something that you guys brought up last night. I'm going to talk about electromagnetic radiation. I'm going to talk about electromagnetic radiation. We haven't talked about it a lot over the years, but since you guys have brought it up, and we've had solar radiation hit the earth as of late, the last 2 years, I want to talk about this. Now, at a community level, because we have not experienced one yet in our lifetime, we don't really know how bad it could get. Frank Gaffney, who's president of the Center for Security Policy, predicted that within a year of an EMP attack, 9 out of 10 Americans would be dead. Electromagnetic pulse attack from a nuclear weapon. When a nuclear weapon is detonated, whether it's in the air or on land, it sends out electromagnetic pulse almost in all directions. Almost in all directions. Within a year of an EMP attack, 9 out of 10 Americans would be dead, because we can't support a population of the present size in the urban centers. And the attack would center on urban centers because that's where most of our population is. And the like, without electricity. Most people without electricity don't know how to survive. They've never been trained. At least over the last 6 years that we've been on the air, I put out enough information for all of us that you may have a reason. You may have a reason to survive. And I would hope that you would do your best to survive with your family. Okay? But I'm just telling you what the experts say. People without electricity would not know how to survive. 9 out of 10 would be dead from the radiation as a result of that EMP attack. And that is exactly what I believe the Iranians are working towards. We talked about that last night. The Iranians have been working towards an EMP weapon. Now North Korea is doing the same thing. North Korea is doing the same thing. Picoy says we have to learn from the Amish how to live without electricity. I agree. I totally agree. But the experts also agree. The next nuclear war will start with at least an EMP. If one of the nuclear powers blasts a nuclear weapon 275 miles above the U.S., it will produce an EMP that will basically send us, the Canadians and the Mexican people, back to the dark ages. Can we fight back after an EMP? Or we will be nothing more than just sitting ducks for Russian nukes as well. Will we be setting ducks for the Russians? Now, I have something you need to pay attention to here. As I said before, everything that we're talking about here is absolutely necessary. When it comes to EMP attacks and nuclear radiation and EMP pulses, I'm somewhat of a subject matter expert. Let's go into that real quick. I want you to understand how I became a subject matter expert. Back when I was a federal police officer in San Diego, our police chief wanted to put radio antennas from our police radios inside the vehicles. He wanted to put our police radio antennas inside the vehicles. Our radios were set to emit 1,500 watts of power out of the radio. Our radios were set to emit 1,500 watts of power out from our radio through the coaxial cable over to the antennas of our vehicle. And yet the police chief wanted to put the antennas, take the antennas off the top of the car and put them inside the car, what would happen? Can I ask that simple question? Does anybody know what would happen from having an officer key the microphone, key the push to talk button on the microphone? What would happen to the occupants of that police car, whether it be 1, 2 officers and 1 prisoner in the back seat? What would happen? What would happen? Don Patoka says due to his prior clearances, he will not be speaking to the EMP issues. I don't blame you. I don't blame you. But I'm a subject matter expert. Richard Smith says microwaves. In some part, that's partially right. But the radios are not putting out microwave signals. They're putting out electromagnetic radiation. They're putting out electromagnetic frequency radiation outside that antenna. Demon Catman says, cook them. You're right. What happens? Don Patoka says, fry their gizzard. Yes. What happens when an officer keys that microphone? Sends out that electromagnetic frequency radiation to bounce around all inside the police car. Those officers are 86% water. Each one of those officers' bodies are 86% water. If a prisoner is in the back seat, that prisoner could also be exposed to EMF radiation. True. I was a ham radio operator. I've been a ham radio operator since I was 18 years old. Before that, I was a CB radio, system band radio operator. I knew that those antennas put out EMF radiation. Those antennas belong on the top of the cars. Our police chief put them for a time in the cars until I raised all kinds of hell. Because I tried to make sure our officers were not subject to EMF radiation. When that police chief put the antennas in the cars, I visited every shift. I talked to the detectives that had their own private vehicle, or not private, but they had their own unmarked vehicles. I talked to every police officer in the department. I went to the briefings, talked to everybody for several days after this happened, telling them not to use the car radio. Do not use the car radio. Because if you do, that radiation will bounce around the interior of the car and could harm your body. Electromagnetic radiation can cause cancer and can cause all kinds of other deformities in our body. Unreal. My mother, before this time, my parents had a house in Poway, California, directly under a great big huge transmission tower. Remember those great big huge electrical towers that occasionally we still see alongside our highways and byways around the world? Those electrical line towers carry electromagnetic frequency radiation. My parents lived directly underneath one of those towers. In 1990, the end of 1990, summer to fall of 1990, my mother developed a huge tumor between her liver and gallbladder. Huge grapefruit-sized tumor. The doctor said that she probably had been exposed to EMF radiation. Of course, because they lived directly under one of those towers. My mother died in 1991 from radiation, cancer. One of her neighbors also died of that same kind of tumor. Richard Smith is saying here in the chat, EMP, 15 to 50 kilovolt per meter. 15 to 50 kilovolt per meter. Absolutely right. And we're going to talk more about that. But I had a lot of evidence, not just from my mother being exposed to the radiation, but I went back home every night until I got the information I could have. I went to the libraries and everything else. I spoke to doctors around this country. There was a doctor in Texas that specialized in the EMF radiation. He sent me a packet of papers, a small book like this thick. He told me, you show your police chief this package that I'm going to send you. And he overnighted it to my address. So I copied it. So I had my own copy. Because I knew what the police chief would do. He would either burn it or throw it in the trash can. When I walked into my police chief's office, I told him to take those antennas out of the car because they were a danger to the officers and anybody else in the car. Anytime the officer keyed that microphone, the radiation would bounce all around the car and subject the officers and anyone else to electromagnetic frequency radiation. At first, he wouldn't do it. I called the doctor back in Texas. He said he would be on the next plane out to San Diego to speak to the police chief and to put the police chief out of a job. That's exactly what he did. He came to our department and spoke with the police chief. He told him if he did not take the radios and put them in radio antennas and put them outside the car, that the police chief himself would be subject to the biggest federal lawsuit in history. Guess what? The police chief rescinded his idea and made sure the antennas went back on top of the cars where they belonged. He was trying to save the department money, resale value of the car without a hole in it. Well, guess what? You do that, you're going to have dead officers. You're going to have dead officers. So we took the antennas out of the car. My mother passed away because of electromagnetic frequency radiation. In 2015, my father, actually in 2008, our stepmother also died of cancer. In 2015, our father also died of cancer. I'm telling you guys, it's dangerous. Charlene Savant just gave us a $20 super chat. Thank you for that, Charlene. We appreciate it. I just gave you an EMA sticker on your super chat. I just gave you a thumbs up as well. We really appreciate what you've done there. Thank you for your support. God bless you for that. Now let's talk about individual people. What could happen to individual people here? And I'm dead serious about it. On an individual scale, because you don't really know where you'd be when it happens. There won't be any kind of transportation or telecommunication after an EMP hits. You'll have to walk your way home. If you work 40 miles away from home, you better have a plan. We've talked about having go bags. We talked about everyone having a go bag. Not necessarily a full-blown 3-day survival kit. A go bag with maybe food for a meal or two, some walking shoes, maybe a light jacket or something to keep you warm if necessary. Walking shoes. A lot better than high heels, right? A lot better than dress shoes, right? Absolutely. And water as well. in your go bag, as well as other things, a small first aid kit as well. You're going to need a go bag if you're going to be stuck at work 40 miles away from home. You better have a plan. We've talked about emergency preparedness plans on these programs before. In the top of our program descriptions, you can go back throughout the last few years and find out every time we've talked about emergency preparedness on the show, because it will show up in the title of the program. Emergency preparedness, especially those shows you need to take a serious look at, because if you don't, you're not going to have the information you need. Today is Friday, and the topic of this program tonight is preparedness. If your car gets stuck with your family on the highway on a cold winter's day or night, you must have a backup plan. A car survival kit. If your child is at school, you got to go get him, right? Absolutely. You need to also make sure your child has a go bag inside of his backpack, his or her backpack. You can put small items in their backpack to get them through several hours before you get to them. But of course, it's going to be imperative to have at the back of your mind a list of things to do immediately after an EMP. But just like in an economic collapse, you will not be able to do a lot of things after the crisis begins. The information you'll find is a good thing to know. We're going to give you good information tonight. I ask all of you to take notes. Take notes. Demon Catman says those vehicles without electronics should be fine. For the most part, we're going to talk about that as well. If the car has no computer, you might be able to get by. But we're going to talk about this as well. Firefly says it depends on the type of distributor points, etc. You're right. You're right. Let's continue here. So what action should you take immediately following an EMP strike? Remember, the time is very critical here. The first few hours or days at the most will enable you to get a jump on everyone else and set the stage for your success. You will know immediately that an EMP is hit, be it from a nuclear weapon or a massive solar flare that has struck your area. You're going to know that immediately. Your car will no longer work. Your cell phone won't work either. The power will be out everywhere. Planes will have fallen from the sky. You will know it was an EMP, but the vast majority of the public will not. They will be quite literally sitting around waiting for someone to tell them what to do. Yet because communication radios will be knocked out, fried, there will be no one to tell them what to do, unless you might be able to help them. That's why it's so important. That's why it is vital that each one of us share information from this program. Each one of us share information from this program. Share it far and wide on all of your social media. Share it far and wide to your family and your extended family, to your neighbors and friends, your social media contacts, and even the people you work with. It's going to be absolutely necessary for you to do this. Otherwise, some people won't survive. But you're not going to also know how large a scope the strike is. But, and this is a big but, you will have to assume the worst, which would be a nationwide outage, a nationwide power outage, a nationwide EMP attack. where everything's fried. First thing, if you're at home, stay there. If you're at work, get home. Your boss no longer has the authority over you. Your coworkers are no longer a priority. They will be trying to restart a computer that will never work again. In fact, it will never work again. And trying to restart their smartphones. Sitting in the break room trying to call 911 and saying things like, "This is ridiculous. I'm going to miss my 3 p.m. sales meeting or sales call." You, on the other hand, will go to your car and change into the extra set of clothes and shoes that you keep in the trunk. You will don your get home bag, your go bag, and start walking. You're going to start walking. Hopefully, your walk will take you more than a day. Will not take more than a day. Once home, it's time to start implementing your plan. Again, I've been harping on everybody on this channel and everybody that will listen to this program. You need to have a plan. You need to have an emergency preparedness plan. Now, remember this. Time is critical, absolutely critical. And you only have a small window of it in order to set yourself up for success, some kind of success. During these initial hours and days, people will still have faith that some sort of government agency will come in to make everything better. But guess what? There will be no government agency to come make things better. FEMA won't be there. FEMA will not even be able to get off the ground in Washington or anywhere else. They won't even be able to get in their cars and drive anywhere. You won't see the government come and knocking on the door. "Oh, we're from the government. We're here to help you." Don't believe it. They will expect to see the power come back on any minute because someone will surely do something, won't they? Wrong. It's not going to happen. They will tell each other, and maybe your boss will say this also, "Sit tight. Just hold on for a day or so," because eventually the government will come running. They will roll in with needed supplies and some military officer or government official that will explain that this is merely a temporary problem. Nothing to worry about. Sorry for the inconvenience. But you know better because you realize just how devastating an EMP strike is. And the reality of it is that it could be months or even years before systems start to come back online. It will only take a week or two at most before things get really ugly because people are going to get hungry. People are going to get very hungry. They're going to get violent, trying to obtain food and water to survive. With all of that in your mind, you need to take these 7 actions because you will be prepared for this to happen. Take some notes here. Folks, please take some notes here. You need to take these 7 actions because you were prepared for this to happen. Number 1, what have we talked about putting in your emergency preparedness supplies, in your emergency preparedness kit? Cash. Cash. One of those gallon Ziploc bags of cash, money. We've been asking everybody, every time you get hold of a little money, put it in your little Ziploc bag and save it. Put it in your little Ziploc bag and save it. That way, when crap hits the fan, you've got something to fall back on. Because there's not going to be any banks available. If there's a bank around, you're not going to be able to get your cash because they can't get into their computers. They cannot even turn off their security systems or even turn them on because there's no electricity. Your ATM cards will not work. Your ATM cards will not work, or your credit cards will not work at any stores, any banks, or anything. Stores do not have cash registers that will open without electricity. They won't be able to take credit cards, but they will be able to take cash if you want to buy something from a store such as a 7-Eleven store, a Stop and Rob. And that's exactly what they're going to be, Stop and Robs. Gang violence. Take all the cash you can and put it in that Ziploc baggie in your emergency supply kit. Take all of your cash in that radio flyer wagon your kids have and walk down to the corner store. Avoid big retail stores. I suggest finding the corner gas station or local drugstore or 7-Eleven. The owner of the store will no doubt be there concerned that the items in the store are left unprotected. The manager or owner will be there to help protect them and what they have. Concerned that those items in the store are unprotected during the power outage. Explain to the owner that you are in need of some supplies and that you can pay cash and you do not require change. Again, do not ever have more than a $20 bill. And I'm going to tell you this, and I do this myself. Do not have more than a $10 bill in that cash in your supply kit. Why? Because the stores won't be able to cash it. You won't be able to use it unless you want to just give away your money. Keep your money in ones and small bills, ones and fives for the most part, because you can spend that. You can spend it easily. But if you have larger bills, they will just take those. You will not get any money back. Explain to the owner or manager of the store that you're in need of some things and you can pay cash. Tell him or her that you will give them an extra $100 to allow you to shop for a few minutes. That might also help you, unless that's all you have in your little stash. Load up your wagon with anything you can find, including medication, candy bars, water bottles, Pop-Tarts, lighters, hand sanitizer, etc. Of course, you should be well stocked at home. You should be well stocked at home. But you might well get rid of your worthless paper money in exchange for any amount of extra supplies you can get your hands on. In a week, maybe less. Most stores will be completely looted. So you need to take advantage of these early moments. 2, I just talked about the first thing on your list. 2, fill up the tubs with water. Fill up your tubs with water. Hopefully you will have a water bob. A water bob. A great big huge plastic bag you can put in your tub and fill with water. Because remember, if the power goes out, you may not have any water come to your home or your apartment because the water pumps will not operate without electricity. So what water you already have in your home might suffice if you can get it out of the taps in your home. Fill up that water bob in the tub. That might give you 25 to 50 gallons of water. Also, turn off the gas to your hot water heater. You're not going to need it because the water in your hot water heater you already have. may be the only water that you might have. You're going to want to use it. But if you have the fire going on your water heater, draining the water out of your water heater could potentially burn down your home. So turn off the pilot light, shut off the gas. That way you're going to be safe. Use the water in your home, that water bob in the tub, and that water in the water heater. You may have other water storage devices as well. Also water purification tablets, water filtration devices. Remember, a grid down situation means that the fresh water will stop flowing to your home very quickly. That's why you need to fill up the tub immediately. Charlene Savant says, can anybody recommend a tried and true hand can opener? Go to Target, go to Walmart. They have plenty of hand can openers. Choose one that feels right for you. Make sure it's well built. Rob52 is here. Well, I've got a second. Rob52 sent Carol and I a card. Rob52 sent Carol and I a card saying thank you. Rob, I want to thank you for that card. I opened the card, showed it to Carol, and she had tears in her eyes. She loved it. All it says is this: Ron, thinking of you with heartfelt thanks. I want you to know how much appreciated you are. You do so much. You're a good brother and your loving wife, Carol. Thank you, Rob, for this card. We love it. We love it. Now, again, fill up your tub with that water as soon as possible, because it might be the only water that you're going to get. If you have the possibility to fill up water jugs, do not use milk jugs. Do not use milk jugs. Use water jugs. Fill them up. Again, this might be the last water you're going to get for a while. If you're concerned about the quality of water, remember, you can add 8 drops of regular unscented chlorine bleach per gallon. 8 drops of regular chlorine bleach per gallon of water to help purify what you have in the tub. To help purify that water that you have in the tub. 3, I've got 10 items here. 3, talk to your neighbors. This step is absolutely critical. You don't have to tell every neighbor what you have. That's not a good idea. But if you have neighbors of like mind and spirit, you might help to get out and talk to them. Talk to your close friends and neighbors. Explain to them what is going on. They're going to be in denial for the most part. They're going to say, oh, good luck, you don't know what you're talking about. Yes, I know those people. I have already run into those people. Hopefully, you will have copies of your own EMP report. You can get an EMP report anywhere off the internet. Copy it. Show them what you have, what you know. Don't show them what you have in your home. Show them that paperwork in your hand. Explain to them what is actually going on. And that time is critical to them and you. Let them know a worst case disaster scenario means that there will be no hope coming for quite a long time. Additionally, mention the following to them. A, discuss a neighborhood watch. Discuss a neighborhood watch. Your neighbor is also helping you keep a watch in your neighborhood to make everybody safer. Tell them that in a few days or weeks, things will get dangerous with hungry people roaming the streets. It's essential that you define your neighborhood boundaries. Define your neighborhood boundaries. Set up a neighborhood watch of sorts, assigning people different shifts to watch over your neighborhood. The more people, the better. The more people involved with your neighborhood watch, the better. That way, most of you will get needed sleep. And then have different shifts. Offer hold a meeting. Offer hold a meeting. Set up a time that you'll have a meeting at your home, in your front yard or backyard. Tell them that they are invited, that every day you'll be there passing out information. At first, you might not have anyone attending these meetings, but in a few days, there will be a handful. In a week, you might have 50 more hungry, scared, tired people demanding answers. If you're going to assume the role of a leader, be prepared to do just that. Be prepared to be a leader. That is why, as of late, we've been talking about standing up for what you believe in. Stand up for what you believe in. Standing for something. Standing for something. Tell them to use their cash. Tell them to use their cash, much like you should have already done. Tell them that their cash will soon be worthless, that they need to go down to the market and spend it, and get the things that they are going to need, things that they are going to use and nothing else. Don't get miscellaneous crap, because guess what? That's going to put you and or them in a bad way. Most people will not have any cash on hand, so this probably won't be a real issue. Tell them to inventory their supplies. Most people have 3 days worth of food on hand. All of you may have to start rationing your food. You may have to start rationing your food. Now, you should mention that they need to start rationing what they have and taking inventory of everything else. Start identifying those with skills. Start identifying those people with skills. I've written about this many times. I've talked about it other times as well. Organize a survival community. Organize a survival community. Get to know your neighbors now. Get to know your neighbors now. Know what your neighbors know. Know what your neighbors know. You can help each other. Do you have a mechanic in your neighborhood? Do you have a nurse or doctor living in your neighborhood? Do you have someone else that might be able to help you or help somebody else in your neighborhood? Identify skilled people in your neighborhood. Skills that will be valuable after crap hits the fan. Skills that will become very valuable when crap hits the oscillator. Now, while making the rounds in your neighborhood, you also should start identifying who has special skills and make note of that. Cops are military personnel. Former cops, former military personnel could help with security. Doctors and nurses obviously have value, and so on and so forth. Start rationing food with your own family and tell others to do the same. Hopefully you will have at least a 6-month to year supply of food. As I said right now, my wife and I probably have over a 6-month worth of food in our house right now. And we add to that supply almost on a weekly basis in some cases. Now, start rationing immediately, because more than likely you will have to share some of your food with your family and friends that are going to show up. But they should also be instructed by you, if you become the leader, that they also need help with the supplies. You will be unavoidable at this point. You will need their help to survive as a community. There's absolutely no way that they will starve while watching you and your family live high on the hog, because they will steal from you and hurt you to get at what you have. This doesn't mean that you cannot oversee how many rations are distributed or seek out other sources of food. But remember this, nobody gets through a crap hits a fan situation alone. No one gets through a crap hits a fan situation by themselves. Now 5, hygiene preparations. Hygiene preparations. Consider where you are going to dispose of human waste. How are you going to dispose of human waste? It might be a good idea to start digging that pit in the back corner of your property. Also consider where you will dispose of your trash and if you will have to bury it or burn it. Remember, the trash man won't be around next Sunday, next Tuesday, next Thursday or Friday. They won't be there at all. Your toilets will also stop flushing very quickly as the water pressure disappears. Listen to your AM/FM weather radio. Listen to your AM/FM weather radio that we've been talking about. Okay? Prior to the EMP, you're going to want to acquire one of these solar hand-cranked AM/FM weather radios. Okay? Or possibly even an old microwave in the basement. It still works. On your radio, you should monitor the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration weather frequencies. Monitor the NOAA weather radio frequencies in your area several times throughout the day because the forecast could change. In case there is information being published, which you could use to stay informed and inform your neighbors of the same. Maybe the strike only covered 500 square miles, and help will be on the way in a week or so. Or maybe nothing. Maybe nothing but static. That would not be a good sign. 7, we talked about security a few minutes ago. Consider your own security plan. Despite all the actions that you've been taking, trying to help those within your community by reaching out to help organize them. Realize that not everything goes to plan. Not everything goes to plan. There are going to be dissenters within your neighborhood. People that do not agree with you, or maybe they don't agree with anything. They might also choose to take advantage of the situation. Looting, like I said, will become very prevalent very quickly. And no neighborhood will become immune. Consider a security plan, your security plan. As I said before, we talked about emergency preparedness plans before. You need to have a security plan for you and your family. This is no time to rely on charity and the goodness of mankind, because it doesn't exist. Remain suspicious of all activity. Let me repeat that. Remain suspicious of all activity, and never walk around unarmed. Never allow your family members to stay in after dark. Remember, stay in after dark. Stay in after dark. Do not wander outside after dark. All of that said, I would caution again. I would caution against using deadly force unless absolutely necessary. Do not use deadly force unless absolutely necessary. And even that, are you prepared to have your family go without you as the leader of your family, as the leader of your home? Don't do it. Don't do it unless it's absolutely necessary. Protect yourself and your family. But remember, that there will come a time when the power does come back and people will be held accountable for their actions. An EMP strike on our nation will be an absolute catastrophe event. It'll be an absolute catastrophic event. And while I'm sure all of us hope that's not going to happen, we all hope it doesn't happen. Hope is another thing. Hope is a completely different animal. We hope that something like this never happens. But hope is never a course of action. Despite our best efforts to prepare for such an event, there is a very good chance that many people will not survive. Some have predicted within a year of a strike, within a year of an EMP strike, that 9 out of 10 Americans will die. In sports, success or failure on the field of play is determined months before the actual game by how much dedication that the athletes displayed during practice. In much the same way, success or failure following an EMP strike will have been determined months or years prior to the strike actually happening, as well as actions which we have to take immediately after. Life isn't fair. Life is not fair, and we need to plan accordingly. We need to plan accordingly. Does anybody have any questions about anything we talked about so far? Does anybody have any questions about anything that we've talked about so far? I'm not done. I'm not done. I want to make sure that we answer all of your questions, or we come to the point where you're going to know those things that you need to do. That's what I want to do here. That's where I want to go with this. I want to make sure that we've done our utmost to answer any questions. Richard Smith says a hand crank grinder. Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. Actually, it's a great idea. It's a great idea. Okay? Let's talk about EMP facts versus myths. What is fact or fiction, or even baloney? Most of the questions that I've received on our website, Emergency Management Associates at Wix.com, or on our Facebook page, or even on our email, those things are about EMPs and Faraday cages. What we realize is that a lot of EMP myths generated by movies, and even some internet sources. The situation is so bad that the United States Air Force Space Command commissioned Bill Nye, the Science Guy, to make a video for the Air Force called Hollywood versus EMP. But it's not available to you and I. It seems the Air Force wanted to make sure that Hollywood fiction would not confuse those who must deal with real EMP events. Now, this is exactly the purpose of what we're talking about tonight. No BS, no exaggerations, just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts. Myth or fiction? Myth or fact? Will an EMP destroy batteries? Will an EMP destroy batteries? Good question, huh? Does anybody have an answer for that? I'm going to tell you not likely. Not likely. Batteries are made of relatively thick plates of metal that are unaffected or will be unaffected by EMPs. Some experts claim that they even have an extra charge a little bit. But if some batteries are connected to the power grid, they will take some damage. It doesn't matter that much since all the electronics you run off those batteries will be likely fried. Most of the electronics that you have connected to those batteries will be fried. Now, I was thinking that if a car dies, why not use a battery? What can I do with it? Myth or fact? Will cars really come to a halt? There are a lot of people saying that cars will work just fine. Some say they'll stop. All you need to do is restart them. And some say that all cars made after 1990 will come to a halt because they're usually dependent on their electronic parts. Yeah. All this is based on a report made by the EMP Commission. They tested 37 cars in an EMP simulation laboratory, up to 50 kilovolt per meter. 50 kilovolt per meter. All cars stopped at approximately 30 kilovolt per meter, but only one car was damaged seriously. The other cars just needed to be restarted. Only one car was damaged seriously. Like I said, the other cars just need to be restarted. What people don't know is that this test was made long ago. The 37 cars tested were vintage, ranging from 1986 to through 2002. 37 cars manufactured from 1986 through 2002, which means they depended less on electronics. The EMP Commission states that since 2002, the number of microprocessors in cars, the remotes, the little electronic computer chips, the cars rely on these things greatly. Motor vehicles have increasingly relied on these parts even more. The sensitivity of electronic circuitry to EMPs has increased due to the use of similar, smaller electronic components designed to operate on lower voltages. Another thing is this. An HEMP can produce more than 50 kilovolts per meter, which can have an even more damaging effect on cars. The fact is that you don't need to damage all cars to make the traffic stop. I think it's enough to permanently damage 40 to 60% of the cars. Some sources say even 15% of the cars will block city streets, highways, and supply lines. Some sources say as little as 15% of vehicles will stop and not start again, will block cities, streets, highways, and supply lines. Myth or fact? Will phones, iPads, electronic devices be affected by an EMP? Well, at first, you know that 95% of these devices already have an internal EMI shielding. Some of these devices already have an internal EMI shielding, which is there to protect the components from affecting each other. The EMI shielding is there already to protect components from affecting each other. Plus, these devices are very small comparing to the power grid. So you have a very good chance of using your iPhone or your Android phone again. immediately after an EMP. Immediately after an EMP. But not to make calls or search stuff on the internet. Not to make calls or search stuff on the internet. Telecommunication antennas will be fried. So signal of any kind will be dead. Signals of any kind will be dead. Cell towers dead. But if the phone is connected to the power grid, charging at the moment that the EMP hits, it will be fried. Remember that. If your phone is connected to the power grid when the EMP hits, your phone will be fried. And even so, you will have a chance of getting away with only a fried phone charger. You might get away with only having a fried phone charger. Myth or fact? Solar storms will only affect the side of the earth that is facing the sun when the storm hits. Wrong. Not true. Solar storms tend to disturb the entire electromagnetic field of the earth, just like this. Solar storms tend to disturb the entire electromagnetic field of the earth, just like this. The solar storm can affect both sides of the earth. Because of a solar storm on March 13th, 1989, Hydro-Quebec lost electric power, cutting the supply of electricity to 6 million people for several hours. This happened at 2:34 in the morning, in complete darkness. So Quebec was on the side opposed to the sun. Quebec was on the opposite side of the earth from the sun. Myth or fact? Will planes fall out of the sky when an EMP hits? Older planes use hydraulics and cables attached to the pilot controls with manual valve actuation and direct pressurization from ram air turbines, which means they'll still have semi-functional flight controls. Those older planes will still have semi-functional flight controls. They might be able to land. Newer planes, almost all airlines, will be extremely difficult to control after their electronic parts will be fried. Almost all airliners will be very, very difficult to control after their electronic parts will be fried. But even so, all Airbus and Boeing planes are demonstrated to be controllable with complete electronic failure. Airbus and Boeing planes are demonstrated to be able to be controlled with complete electronic failure. They would be extremely difficult to land, but it would be still possible to do so. All planes will be turned into semi-controllable gliders. Semi-controllable gliders, with newer planes having almost no control and older planes having almost full control over the plane. And pilots will face a very hard task to land the plane with highways being full of broken down cars and no emergency services. And if it's night, then there will be no ground lights either. Add no ground lights to the problem, and all of a sudden you have a real catastrophe with planes falling out of the air. I'm not an expert. I'm somewhat of a subject matter expert. But I guess that if you're on a plane when an EMP strikes, you're pretty much dead. You're going to be pretty much dead when an EMP strikes. Or you will be very incredibly lucky. You'll either be dead or completely incredibly lucky. But don't think that an EMP will cause planes to enter a spin and pancake into the ground. like you've probably seen in movies. That in and of itself won't happen. Another question, myth or fact? Will the world as we know it come to an end? A world without electricity is not the world as most of us know it. But if the blackout lasts for 1 or 3 days, it probably won't be a huge problem. But all depends upon the time that's going to be required to replace the broken pieces. The time required to replace the broken pieces. The equipment used in the transmission grid is costly, specially produced, and has to be ordered from overseas before replacement here in the United States or anywhere else. Those with the expertise to replace transformers and capacitors are likely to be overwhelmed if much of our infrastructure is damaged, only delaying the replacement of equipment that generally takes 2 years to be manufactured and delivered. There was a man I deeply respected a lot of years ago, Edward Pah. He was in Sweden. He lived in Sweden, was dispatched there by LA Power and Light to help oversee the building of generators by Aveyah electric conglomerate in Sweden. Sweden built the transformers, so he was there overseeing it. Still, China, Sweden, Germany, and other countries build these transformers and generators. What are the chances that any one of our energy conglomerates can get a generator or even a transformer from a different country after the EMP hits? Nobody knows for sure. Nobody knows for sure how much it will take to replace all the transformers and the capacitors if other countries help. But I'm going to tell you this. I'm thinking more of a time frame of 10 to 20 months. 1 to 2 years is not too far-fetched. Did you know that New York City had a blackout in 1977? The blackout lasted for only a day. It was called the Night of Terror. The night resulted in widespread looting throughout New York neighborhoods. The police were outmatched and had no chance of stopping massive theft that went on, largely having no choice to be able to just stand by watching looters from a distance. This will be just the first night after an EMP. That will be just the first night after an EMP. After a few months, it will be total chaos and widespread starvation, to say the least. Myth or fact? Do Faraday cages need grounding? The answer is no. Grounding, but it's not necessary. Yes, it could be grounded, but it's not necessary. To be sure that you made an EMP hardened Faraday cage, all you need to do is place a small turned on radio inside your Faraday cage. If the radio stops transmitting, you know your Faraday cage is real and it works. Then you have a hardened EMP box. Then and only then will you know that you have a hardened EMP box. You can test that today, tomorrow, or the next day before an EMP hits. Build an EMP Faraday cage now, whether it's getting a bag or building your own out of a trash can. I talked about doing that before. Having a metal trash can. Put your metal trash can down on a corner of a large, thick piece of cardboard. Trace it out. Then cut that round out of the cardboard. Stick that round down into the bottom of the trash can. Then carefully take the rest of the cardboard and line the interior of the trash can, making sure that the cardboard does not touch anything other than the outside of the can. If you have to use tape to put that cardboard in place, do not use that wonderful tape that we always use. Don't use it. That tape could conduct electricity. Don't use it. Use painter's tape or some other kind of tape to hold that cardboard in place. Then the lid of the trash can, do the same thing with the lid of the trash can. Put that down on a piece of cardboard, trace it out, cut it out, and put that in the bottom of the lid of the trash can, just like this. Then you can put the lid on top of the trash can and you'll have a good Faraday cage. Okay? You'll have a good Faraday cage. Now, in a future episode of this program, I will conduct a training, a seminar on how to make Faraday cages. Myth or fact? If you test a Faraday cage with a radio, then the electronics inside are 100% protected against EMP? No. No protection is 100% certain. No protection is 100% certain, but shielding against 20,000 volts per meter, an EMP will be enough to protect it from known weapons. Your shielding of your own Faraday cage will probably be enough to protect it from known modern-day weapons. But no Faraday cage is 100% certain. A man named Jerry Emanuelson from Future Science had a very good explanation for this. He said, a very efficient 80 decibel Faraday cage would reduce the EMP factor by 10,000. In other words, it will reduce a 20,000 volt per meter EMP field to 2 volts per meter. From 20,000 volts per meter to 2 volts per meter. This high level shielding is necessary for some applications, but not for the average consumer, except for the most critical electronics such as emergency radio receivers. Emergency radio receivers. For many applications, an imperfect shield is quite helpful, and it may be all that is necessary. In some cases, though, such as an expensive solar panel system, it makes sense to try to get as close as possible to military-grade protection, since a functioning solar power system may determine whether you have electricity in your home or not. Having a functioning solar power system may determine whether you have electricity in your home or not. The myth is analogous to saying that if a coat doesn't keep you from being cold during a winter blizzard, then you might as well just rip your coat off and go shirtless while out in the snowstorm. Asking how much shielding you will need is like asking how much of a coat will you need in the wintertime. How much of a coat will you need in the winter? It depends on how cold you're going to get and upon how sensitive you are to the cold. Myth or fact? Turning off electronics will better protect them. Yes. Turning off electronics will better protect them. Yes. It seems that equipment is more vulnerable if it is operating. And this also includes cars. Cars that will be running where an EMP hits have a higher chance of getting broken. But this, of course, doesn't mean that all systems that are turned off will not be unaffected. Doesn't mean that all functions of systems that are turned off will be unaffected. Myth or fact? Will an EMP destroy pacemakers? A solar storm will not destroy a pacemaker. But if you are an airplane flying above 30,000 feet, then you might be in trouble. Earth's atmosphere does not provide significant shielding at that altitude. According to NASA, the effects at this altitude are 10 times greater than on Earth. On the other hand, a nuclear EMP generating 30,000 volts per meter can be a problem. Here's a very good answer. There is a medical scientist working with pacemakers for 30 years, and I think I can give a definitive answer. He said, the hermetically sealed can that the pacemaker is in will indeed be a very good Faraday cage. It's no direct damage from an EMP. A bipolar system with, say, 5 millimeters electrode separation will, with a major high altitude EMP generating 25 kilovolts per meter in the northern US, delivering a voltage pulse to the circuitry of about 900 volts. This won't damage a pacemaker. Pacemakers are designed to cope with external defibrillation. External defibrillator voltages. A unipolar system where the electrodes may be 15 centimeters apart will generate a bigger voltage, maybe 4 SkV, 5 kV to the generator. This could be damaging. 4 to 5 kilovolt to the generator could be damaging. According to some manufacturers, a powerful EMP may just turn the device off. In closing, will an EMP destroy solar panels? A solar storm probably won't cause major problems with your solar panels if they're not connected to the power grid. Nothing will happen to them. If your solar panels are not connected to the power grid, nothing will happen to them. But if they are, then in case of a solar storm, the inverter will cause your system to shut down automatically. Worst case scenario will mean your inverter will blow a fuse. A simple fuse change will get your solar panels back to full working order. But a nuclear EMP, powerful enough, will destroy unprotected solar panels. A nuclear EMP, powerful enough, will destroy unprotected solar panels. The best way to protect them is, of course, to enclose them in a Faraday cage. This means you will not be able to use their solar panels. But since solar panels are pretty expensive, I guess that only a few people buy them just to put them aside for hard times. So if you want to minimize potential damage in case of an EMP while using your solar panels, there are still some things you can do. Number one, cut off the cable surplus. Cut off the cable surplus. Cable acts like an antenna, picking up the EMP and intensifying its strength. That leads from the panels to the charge controller and battery bank. That can pick up the pulse and fry the inverter. That can pick up the pulse, the EMF, and fry the inverter. Buy another inverter and keep it in your Faraday cage so you can replace the other inverter if it breaks down. This is not only the part that might fry. This is not the only part that might fry. If the solar storm, the nuclear EMP, is powerful enough, everything could be destroyed that's not inside the Faraday cage. I'm just saying. Does anybody have any questions for me? Richard Smith says cops have magic EMP nugs for cars. Actually, they do. There is a company called EMP Shield. There's a company called EMP Shield. If you have questions, go to EMP Shield and look at that. And they can help you answer any questions that you might have about that. An EMP Shield for a car or a home. They have answers for most of your questions. Does anybody have any more questions for me? I've been here on the air 2 hours now. I don't mean to take much longer than that. But after we've been talking about what we've been talking about, I would be remiss without talking about how we can save our nation by saving our homes. How we can save our nation by saving our homes. Society's problems arise almost without exception. One of the homes of the people. If there's to be reformation in our society, in our neighborhoods, in our cities and states, if there's to be a change, there's to be a return to old school and sacred values, it must begin at home. That change must begin at home. There is no place, no environment more conducive to the development and enactment of virtue than the family. The health of any society, the happiness of its people, the prosperity and their peace, all find their roots in the teaching of children by fathers and mothers, and in the strength and stability of the family. I know this is not only because of what I have observed during my time here on this earth, but because of what I've experienced in my own childhood home with my parents. When I was a boy, I told you that we had time that we called family home evening. Sundays after church, we went to my grandparents' house to see my grandmother. My grandfather died before I even came to this earth. My dad had 11 brothers and sisters. I know for a fact when my grandmother died in 1974, she had over 135 grandchildren. When we went over to my grandmother's home, all her kids met there with their kids. Our aunts and uncles, their nieces and nephews, or cousins, all met at our grandparents' home. We also had time at our own home for our parents to have a home evening with us, to teach us things and have fun as a family. On a specified evening of the week, we join as a family to learn together, play together, and even enjoy one another's company. My father and all of my aunts and uncles were great storytellers. My father often told us stories from his memory. Our mother would warm up the parlor, our living room, where her grand piano stood, so we could sing together as a family. A huge piano. My aunts and uncles could play the piano, and they had beautiful voices. Those of us, as we grew older, played instruments. And we had a small family band at one time. We were miserable performers as children, though. We could do all kinds of things together while playing. But when one of us tried to sing a solo in front of the others, it was like asking ice cream to stay hard on the kitchen stove. In the beginning, we would laugh and make cute remarks about one another's performance, but we were there for each other. And our parents persisted. Our parents wanted to make sure we got along with each other. Our parents wanted to make sure we could be successful. And because our parents persisted, we sang together and we got better and better. We would laugh together. We studied together. And we played and prayed together. Out of the simple and informal regular gatherings in the living rooms of our old home and my grandmother's living room with all of us, something indescribable, wonderful, and remarkable happened. Our love for our parents was strengthened. My love for my brothers and sisters was enhanced. An appreciation for simple goodness grew in all of our hearts. Admittedly, we didn't openly speak about the love we had for one another and the affection we had for each other in those days, but we didn't have to. We felt the security, the peace, and the strength that comes from families who learn together, play together, and pray together, helping one another and feeling connected one with another. Unfortunately, in many homes today, it is far less than ideal. I've been sobered for many years of reports from the Carnegie Task Force on meeting the needs of young children that painted a very dismal picture. We as a society, each one of us in our families, need to get down to brass tacks. We need to get down to brass tacks. We need to learn how to become social with each other. We need to become families again, brothers and sisters in the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's why I talk about this as often as I do. I want us to be successful. There is no success. David O. McKay said that no success can compensate for failure in the home. And I believe that. Think about that. Think about that. Folks, if anything else happens tonight, as soon as the information becomes available, we come back on here to tell you about it. The same thing this weekend. However, we try to take Saturdays off as often as we can to get things done around our house. Carol and I love each other. We try to spend as much time as we can. But folks, if anything else happens, we will be back on the air to tell you about it as soon as the information becomes available. Other than that, we will be back here Sunday at about 12 noon, 12:30, with Come Follow Me, the Savior Said, weekly Sunday school class that we've been doing for probably 5 years now. I ask all of you to please join us for that Sunday school lesson. It's going to be great. I promise you that. I've been working on it all week long. I ask all of you, please love each other. Please love each other and help each other. God bless you. God be with you until we meet again. We will see you on the other side. Have a good night, everybody. I love you very much. We'll see you soon. God bless. Good night. Oh.